Welcome, everyone, to episode 6 of the Mindful Millions podcast. I'm your host, Cristina Perez, and today I have my marketing coach extraordinaire, Erin Thobias, and she is running her own agency called Social Interaction, and she helps entrepreneurs and business owners grow through intentional and authentic marketing, which is perfect because today we're diving into Marketing 101. Where should you begin? So, Erin, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and when and how you founded Social Interaction.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Christina. We're going to get to talk about so many exciting topics and with your audience being well versed in the financial world, I think, we'll be able to go a little bit deeper than I usually would in terms of how to invest your ad dollars, when it makes time to invest in marketing. But before we get into all of that, I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I
Thanks
started
for
my business.
coming.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. So I started my business about 3 years ago, and it was really an interesting situation. I essentially had been working for many of the top Fortune 500 companies in our world today. Think McDonald's,
Cheesecake Factory.
Cheesecake Factory,
That's the one
Procter
that I remember.
Gamble. Yeah. The list goes on and on. A lot of pharmaceutical companies. I mean, pretty much anything that you throw at me, I've worked on it. And it kind of, I got to a point where I felt like, well, do I really want to go invest my time in yet another big company and helping that company grow? Or do I want to take a step back and start working on projects that feel intentionable, and aligned with my values? And so it was pretty neat to meet you, Christina, when you were also at that point in
hmm
your career as well, because I had just been there and
hmm
really made that decision to go out and bet on myself and start my own company, and not only start my own company as an entrepreneur, but help other entrepreneurs to build up their companies as well. So the neat thing about my business is that there's a lot of camaraderie.
hmm
I understand exactly what you're going through in terms of being a solo business owner, but I also have seen the way these large companies operate and how they
Right.
invest their money and how they market and persuade their consumers. And so all of that knowledge really helps us to craft a doable marketing strategy. So something that feels like it plays to your strengths, but also
hmm
is very effective in terms of building up your business. So that's what I do now. I've been in business for 3 years, and I mean, there's no going back for me.
No, and I definitely am so glad we met when we did. And you're, I don't know, it didn't even feel like marketing, your messaging. It just felt like you really were trying to help, like you said, small businesses like myself. And I could really see a lot of similarities in what I was trying to do in the financial planning world and what you were trying to do in the marketing
Yeah.
world. So I loved it. And I don't think everyone knows the way your services work, but I completed your brand clarity session, and that was really what gave me some clarity into what my message was to the world. And to this day, I think it's actually I have stayed true to that North messaging, how
Yeah.
you once called it. And it's just helping clients make confident, clear decisions, financial decisions.
Yeah.
Um, and
Christina,
yeah,
you've done a great job of staying on message and on track and on goal. And if not, one thing I think that you've done is that you've taken that initial seed of inspiration and that initial North Star and you've expanded it. So you've absolutely gone towards that direction and you achieved those goals. And as more goals have unfolded, you've been able to capitalize on them and be in a
hmm
position to really expand and grow and build what your client is asking for. And so I think it's been really wonderful to watch your business grow and grow and grow. And I feel honored to have
thank you.
been in the
And
right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying about it didn't really feel like marketing. Like marketing is just communication and persuasion. And the best marketing makes a connection with your consumer. Marketing is also changing. So it's much more of a conversation. It's much more authentic these days. It's
Mm-hmm.
less like stuffy. Like if you think back to, for
A
example,
used car salesman.
when I used to even work for some of the pharmaceutical companies, I mean, those are the stuffiest ads that you've ever seen. And they're always like so long. And there's a list of like,
Side effects
side
may
effects,
cause
but
death.
then
Yeah.
you still have to persuade someone to somehow take this medicine, even though there's all those side effects. And so it's very rigid,
Mm-hmm.
in what you can do. But even if you look at some of those companies, they're starting to become much more relaxed and start to use influencers and
Oh, really?
bend and push some of those boundaries that have typically been put on them. So marketing has just become so much more of a conversation, and I think that's where brands thrive, is when they're willing to kind of bend the rules and reach beyond the screen and actually speak to a real consumer and maybe show some of their cards as well in their
I
authenticity.
And I think really marketing is now about experiences, which a conversation is an experience. And so I definitely can agree with that. Just as a consumer in the marketplace, I would agree wholeheartedly that that is how it's happening. And it makes it harder to say no.
It is more persuasive when when you actually are either holding a product in your hands or when you actually are going to an event and you experience,
Hmm.
something that has to do with, your business. And even with the experiential aspect, I think sometimes people think that they need to do like a demo or something like that, or like, in the food industry, we think of like sampling products, like
Hmm.
when you're
Hmm.
walking in Costco and you have all the free samples. But experiential marketing can be much more creative than that. So it can even be product adjacent. So for example, if you are a coach and you help people live a sober life, for example,
Hmm.
you could have an activation that has nothing to do with your actual coaching experience, but maybe you're going into parties and you're providing mocktails or you're providing another experience for people who are at those parties that might not want to consume alcohol. So, with experiential marketing, I think you can get so much more creative than sometimes we think of if we put it into the
Hmm.
box of marketing. So,
Right, right. Then we're thinking Google ads or
yeah,
just social
yeah,
media channels, but you could think outside of the box when it
yeah.
comes to experiences.
So,
I need to
yeah,
think
I love
outside
it.
of the box. No. I definitely wanted to, the theme of today's episode is where to begin. So, really talking about how do you set a budget? How do you define success? So, maybe some metrics, which we'll dive into after we talk about budgeting. And lastly, talking about how we're going to create a message that resonates and feels authentic. And so, maybe you can share what inspired maybe one of your clients or even your marketing approach.
Yeah, so in terms of working with clients, my approach is to play to your strengths. So if you're, feeling shy, for example, about being in front of the camera, there's plenty of other marketing tactics that we can do in the meantime while you start to gain confidence and
Hmm.
experience talking about your business. I feel that the camera shyness can go away after you have like some time in your business underneath your belt. So if you're just
Yeah.
starting off and you're one of those people who's like, I don't want to post my photo online, or I don't want to get up and speak or have to make a video. There's plenty of ways that you can market yourself without having to do that. So a lot of my clients start at that point. And so we do things like email marketing. We'll create maybe carousel posts instead of talk to
Yeah.
camera posts.
That
Um,
was me.
yeah, yeah. And now look at you, you're hosting your very own podcast. So
I know.
you're
We've
definitely
come a
got
long way.
through the camera shyness. But, as you start to know who your consumer is, it becomes easier to speak directly to them, and you start to build
Mhm.
out this avatar in your mind of who that person might be. And that helps you to not only be more specific about speaking to maybe some of their specific pain points, but also helps you become more comfortable with your messaging. And when you start to feel that moment of nervousness, a lot of times
Mhm.
that can be the thing that helps you get over it, is just imagining that individual in your mind. In fact, I'm doing it right now as I'm speaking to you.
Wow.
I'm thinking
That
of
is
the
awesome.
person that I hope is on the other end. So if someone is just getting started and they're feeling nervous, that would be my recommendation. And I try to work towards, like I said, people's strengths.
Mhm.
And as they progress, we progress.
Mhm.
I also have clients who are on the other end of the spectrum where it's like they love to be in front of the camera. In fact, they're very good at it. They've written books. They have
Wow.
all the video libraries. They regularly are going on speaking events and tours, but they haven't had any marketing. So they're doing all these things, but there's no real consistent marketing efforts behind them. So sometimes I'm
Yeah.
coming in at that point where it's like they are super professionals when it comes to the outward facing, but they need the strategy that's going to get them to maybe a more tangible business place. So those are those are two of the maybe most extreme examples. And then of course there's people in the middle who have been in
Mhm.
business for a little while. Maybe they're the teenagers of their in the business world, and they're in a place where they've been bootstrapping a lot and doing a lot
Mhm.
on their own, but now they're faced with, do I invest my time more in serving my clients, or
Mhm.
maybe I want to step back and spend a little bit more time with my family, and the marketing piece is feeling really heavy to them. So
Mhm.
I can come in and help them to, level up their strategy as well as start to work in their business to build some of the assets. So I'll write newsletters, I'll help them to create their podcasts, I'll create some
Yep.
videos for them. So it's the way that I like to work is I look into your business, I understand what needs to get done, and then we figure out how we can do it together.
Yeah, it definitely has been a joy working with you and how flexible the options are in terms of support. And you definitely have helped me level up my strategies. I feel like I'm due for another session very soon.
We'll talk soon. But yeah, I think also, in terms of finding your voice, you asked that question too. So I gave
Mhm.
you a few different examples of where someone might be in their journey, but I also want to acknowledge that it is a journey. And so your
Mhm.
voice is going to change and evolve as you change and evolve and as your business grows as well. So, you know, where you are right now is likely not going to be where you are 6 months from now.
Right.
And
Hopefully.
yeah, and when you have good and effective branding around your voice and around your business, that's what then allows for you to grow and also pivot as you need to. So as a professional, you're human, you're going to have things that happen in your life, you're going to have waning interests that come and
Mhm.
go. When you have a solid brand foundation around you, you're in a position where you can still pivot and change as you grow.
Mhm.
And you can also, as the market changes, we've all been experiencing a
Mhm.
tremendously different market
Yeah.
of
New
advertising.
products.
Yeah,
Mhm.
now, and how people are consuming is so much different in terms of all the AI that's happening. Some people are choosing to even check out of social media altogether. Others are consuming more of it than ever. Television is like almost completely gone, except
Really?
for some of the older generations that are still holding on to their cable. But the way we consume television is all OTT and
Streaming.
streaming right now. So even how we reach and talk to those consumers is different because of the way that they're accessing the product. So
Right.
it's a fun time for me because everything's changing and growing. And also, it's really wonderful that many of my clients already do have that solid brand foundation. And so they're in a
Hmm.
position where, yes, the market's changing around them, but they're able to grow and pivot and act as they need to, and also still have that firm foundation to stand on.
And what would you say are maybe some common mistakes that someone that is just getting started, transitioning into fully focusing on their own business when it comes to
Instant,
marketing?
okay, so I would say it's that instant gratification that we all love to have.
What do
We've
you
been
mean?
trained to expect instant gratification.
Hmm.
And a lot of what makes a business successful and also what makes marketing successful is the strength to see the forest of the trees and look at the long path. And so what's going to, keep you moving forward in the long haul. And so I would say that is maybe one of the biggest setbacks is I see people picking up and changing their business like every 2 to 3 months because
Okay.
they get
Is there
bored
a time
or
frame?
because they don't actually spend the time that they need in order
Yeah.
to see, does this idea actually work.
So how long should you test a strategy for before starting
So
another
I
one?
always say what you did 3 months ago is what's impacting your business now. And I found that
Okay.
to be true across every business I've ever worked on. If it's a larger company, so for example, like an M&M's, I've worked on, or Mars Wrigley, or, if you're like a toothpaste brand, it's actually that timeline is extended further. So a lot of
Wow.
times, because they have a lot of capital to burn and a lot of goodwill and a lot of brand recognition, you'll actually see the changes in your marketing until like 6 months to a year later. So for a small business, I would say, usually that time horizon is 3 months, but one of the traps that I've seen big companies get into is that they will, for example, pull back their advertising and think, well, everything's great because nothing changed this month and we're still doing good. And Q2 is looking good, Q3 is looking good, Q4 is okay. And then all of a sudden there's like a huge drop because they haven't
They
been
stopped.
investing. And
Hmm.
they don't necessarily think, oh, maybe it's because I stopped advertising in Q1 of last year and now everything's just catching up to us. So
That's
understanding
interesting.
that what you do now, you might not see the fruits of that labor immediately, and being okay with that and allowing for things to unfold as they need to and to keep moving forward.
And
Now,
that definitely, or I just wanted to find or mention the parallel with investing because there's
good
a
point.
chart that shows, I believe it's like 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10 years. If you invested X amount in the stock market, the likelihood of it being a loss or a gain,
Mhm.
it it's definitely a much higher the shorter time frame that you have the money invested, but after 10 years, it's like a less than 5% chance that you won't have a return, that you'll have a loss. So the longer you stay invested, the more likely you're going to actually have a return.
Oh,
So that kind of reminded me of that concept.
yeah, I think, Christina, our businesses can be very similar, which is really fun. And I'm curious, how do you keep your clients engaged and motivated when they're investing, for example, 10 years and they might not see the return on that investment for 10 or 20 or 30 years?
I mean, it's really great when we're talking about saving into a pre-tax retirement account, like a traditional IRA or 401k, because then that comes with current year tax savings that I
Hmm.
can point to. So it's really nice
Hmm.
being able to say, if you save in this account for retirement, not only are you going to get to your retirement goal sooner, today it's going to save you in taxes.
Yeah,
But with just getting them to delay gratification and spend less on just discretionary spending like dining out, shopping, entertainment,
yeah,
which in itself, I do see the value in living your life, but you're ultimately every dollar that you spent or wealth is everything that you don't buy, right? So every dollar that you don't spend on discretionary wants That's what discretionary means. It's a want, it's not a need.
Yeah.
Those are the dollars that are much harder to get redirected into savings with clients. But I try to, again, use their goals and helping them save taxes
Hmm.
to help redirect more cash flow into savings.
Smart. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, I also think that something that's helped me in the past is seeing there's a lot of tools. I notice that a lot of the investment firms will kind of like try and gamify the process.
yep.
So if I'm able
That's
to
it.
log in and kind of see that the graph is going up or where are we, or maybe there's a thermometer and I'm like
Oh, yeah.
inching up.
Well, definitely showing a client that their plan is going to fail, that usually works with getting them to spend less.
In all this being said, like most of my clients are coming to me, they're wanting big results. Now, there's markers along the
Mhm.
way, of course. We can always, usually there is like an instant gratification moment, a little one, it might not be like your primary big goal, but usually there's like a few clients, for example, that are already out there. And if you just speak your offer to them in a way that feels compelling, usually you can get some pretty quick conversions. But in terms of the long-term goal, like if you're trying to, for example, you have a membership and you're trying to build that up to say like 200 or 1,000 people, that goal is going to take a lot longer than maybe like
Yeah.
the first like 40 people, for example.
Yeah.
So, it depends. And I think that as we are working together, one thing I find is that providing clear reporting makes a lot
Mhm.
of a difference. And being able to then also explain that reporting in context. So, one of the things I've noticed is that if I'm able to showcase, okay, why does it matter that we've had 140,000 views on our Instagram, for example? Why does that
Right.
actually matter? Because how is
Yeah.
it getting us towards our ultimate goal? Then that goes a much longer way than, just saying like, we did great on Instagram. Look at this. We're we're going
Yeah.
viral. It's like sometimes going viral isn't even effective towards your actual business. There's
Right.
plenty of businesses that are thriving, making millions of dollars without ever going viral. And so,
Exactly. That's where my head was going. I've
yeah,
heard
so
of,
I think it
or
makes a difference what your goal is as well.
agreed. I was just going to share that I was at a conference recently with a lot of CEOs, and one of them was talking about how important marketing was in her business and investing in it. So, talking about setting a specific budget, is there a benchmark or
Mhm.
a percentage of revenue that you usually provide as a guideline, or how do you
Yeah.
approach setting a budget for
Yeah.
marketing?
Oh, awesome. I love that you asked this question. So, when you're first starting out, I feel like 4 to 8% is a really nice benchmark to be at. And that can
Okay.
afford you, obviously you want to make sure that all your baseline needs are taken care of. So you're able to feed yourself, you're able to pay your rent, you're able to, run your business the way you need to.
Hmm.
Once you get into that place, you kind of will get to a place where it makes sense to invest. And a lot of people, for example, when they're first starting their business, they might need to make an initial investment without having income coming in. So I feel like that 4 to 8% is a really good place to be, because that would allow for an investment of, say, like $1,000 a month or like a
Hmm.
$500 program. I know,
Hmm.
for example, a lot of the things that we're buying right away might not be a long-term commitment. It might just be like a momentary
Hmm.
3-month investment. And I think that's
Yeah.
honestly a great place to start. It can give you a lot of momentum. It can teach you a lot of skills, especially if you're
Yeah.
investing in something like, a coaching program or like a 3-month one-on-one support container.
Yeah.
That can go a long way and give you impact not just for that moment, but also for the entire year. So that's one way you can be kind of scrappy when you first start
Yeah.
off. And then as you start to get more established, 15% is a really good place to be.
I'm
So
writing this down actually.
that's typically where you start to see a longer term investment and also maybe some paid advertising too. So most companies will split out their investment based off of their objectives.
Hmm.
So if you are, for example, trying to achieve a certain goal, you want to make sure that you're invested properly in order to do that. So baseline, I recommend that people spend around 60% of their marketing capital in awareness driving activities. So those are activities that you're just trying to get your name out there. And the primary goal is like you want people to know your name, and you also want them to know why they need to call you. So if they're
Hmm.
having the problem in their life in that moment, you want them to think of your name and give you a call. And that gives you a kind of like a foot in the door, for example.
Yeah.
The other stage after that is considered consideration. And your your primary objective here is that you actually want them to consider you as part of the investment that they're going to make to solve this problem. So you might
Hmm.
be the only one that they're going to consider. Like, for example, if I'm trying to solve a really small problem, like I need a phone charger, like I might think, oh, I saw the phone chargers at the Shell gas station. I can run by there on my way home and also get gas. And that's my whole thought process. And I run in, I grab it, and I buy it, and I leave.
Hmm.
You know, for the work that we do, Christina, when it's investing in your business, you're likely going to have like maybe two or three people that you're
Hmm.
bidding out an opportunity to.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you're evaluating based off of how those proposals come in, who you think is going to be the best person to work with. And that brings us to the final objective, which is conversion. And so that's actually when the deal is being done and you're actually making that purchase. And a lot of times where businesses go wrong is that they invest their entire budget in conversion driving activities, and they expect that everything they do for marketing is going to drive that conversion right away, or
Hmm.
they're only valuing that piece of the pie. And so when that happens, they become overinvested in conversion driving activities, and they actually slow down their path to conversion because the people who are maybe landing on their website, for example, they haven't had that experience of actually, going through that funnel that I just explained,
Hmm.
where there's trust that's being built. And
Right.
there's also an awareness of the problems that they're wanting to solve. So they're feeling motivated to solve this problem. If you're
That makes
only,
sense.
yeah, if you're only investing in conversion, then you just essentially cut out that entire part of the experience. And so then it becomes a game of like, there might be a lot of missed opportunities because trust isn't built. And
Right.
you also might not have the clients, if you're in a service-based business and you're having to interface with your clients a lot, the quality of the client might not be very high. So if you're
Hmm.
experiencing, for example, a lot of no-shows in your business, or a lot of people who don't end up paying you, or
Hmm.
all
Yeah.
those types of problems, or maybe as people just go to your website and they leave right away, and so there's not a lot of bookings happening. I would actually consider not doubling down on, not investing more in conversion, but considering what's happening before they get to that point where they're trying to make that decision.
And what do those conversion tactics that they're focusing on look like so that they can stop doing that? Or just some examples.
So I wouldn't want you to stop, but for
Right, right.
example, I think for example, social media advertising is a great place to start. So it's, we're saying that in your marketing plan, you have a vast menu of different tactics that you can pull from. And I always think of marketing as like this toolbox. And
Hmm.
based off the problem that you're trying to solve, you're pulling different tactics out of this toolbox that you have.
Hmm.
Social media marketing is one of those tactics. And you can use social media marketing across, awareness, conversion, and consideration, all three. But
Okay.
one of the things that I see is when people make their first investment, for example, in conversion driving activities, on Meta, so like Instagram and Facebook, for example, they are investing in what is called the conversion objective. And so they're pouring all their money in just driving specific sales. And for that reason, number one, they might not have a lot of money to spend, and that can be pretty costly to drive direct sales. I mean, sometimes it can be upwards of $50 to $60 per person, or per conversion. And when instead they could have maybe adjusted their objectives a little bit. And so by, for example, creating an objective like a click or a impression, which an impression is like someone views your ad or
Okay.
someone clicks on your ad, would be the other one I just mentioned, instead of a direct purchase, that can save you a lot of money, because a click could cost, cents on the dollar versus same with the impression versus an actual conversion. And so you can play a game with how the system is optimizing. That's just one of many examples, but it's the one that I see happening the most. And it's not just with small business clients, although they're the most susceptible, because I don't know if
Yeah.
you've experienced this, but when you post anything, Meta will serve you an ad and be like, do you want to put $5 to boost this?
Yeah. I was about to ask, is that the boosting your post? What it's, or what, when you're talking
Yeah,
about that? I
so
almost fell for it. I didn't. Be proud.
it's not, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes they, boost it every now and then. It's just not the most effective thing. So if you work with me, I would actually put you into a separate buying system that has access to actually more premium inventory than those like little $5 investments that you would make on your end whenever you just like click that button that says, yes, I'll boost.
Right.
But, I see the same thing happen at large Fortune 500 companies. I mean, many of the companies that I've worked with, a lot of times I was coming in to clean up certain,
Yeah.
things that had gone wrong. And one of the things I cleaned up a lot was there was like this moment in time where everyone was super excited about lower funnel tactics. And because it was the first time we ever had this data available to us to actually see that someone clicked on our ad and then they went to the website and then they bought something, and we just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And there ended up being a period of time where everyone just stopped doing awareness marketing. They dumped all their money into that conversion because it was how, number one, we could prove our worth as marketers. Yes, we did drive that conversion. And then also it was really exciting to the client to get that dopamine rush of seeing that conversion happen. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of times when I'd come in and kind of adjust the marketing mix to start investing in awareness and nurturing tactics again. And usually it would be like a hard fought win, but once the client started to see, oh, it's actually costing less for me to convert my clients than it was before, then they start to get on board.
Yeah, and I'm actually at the point where I'm starting to look at my website analytics, and I mean, I don't really look at my social media, but I do know for a fact that out of the 8 clients that I have, 2 of them came from social media, so it is
Awesome.
working.
It works. It really actually
Yeah.
works. I mean, I know marketing works because I see it every day, but at the same time, I still have this moment of like, it worked. It did what I
Yeah.
thought it was gonna do.
No, that's so true. And I feel like you're talking about some of the metrics that it's important to measure so
Yeah.
that you can, and or even taking a step back, how would you define success when it comes to marketing in your own business? And maybe how would you recommend others might measure their own success?
So for me in my business, it's usually the quality of the customer who comes in. So,
Love that.
I only have so many hours in the day, and I actually don't take a lot of one-on-one consultation calls. And so when I do take those calls, I want to make sure that it's the right fit and we're the right match to work together. So, at the beginning of my business, I actually had a lot of volume of consult calls, but they were not the right fit for me in terms of
Hmm.
the problems that my business could solve, and also the business that I would want to work on, frankly.
Hmm.
And so I did a lot of work in the beginning of my business journey to pay attention to what my core ideal consumers were saying. People like yourself, Christina.
Yay.
I want to attract a motivated, expansive, vibrant, and visionary business owner. I want to
Oh, I'm
attract a
honored to
business
be
a
labeled.
business owner who is doing good in this world and isn't just out to just only make money. They have a vision for the future and they want to actually make a positive impact along with getting that monetary value back. So I did a lot of work to listen to what do those consumers need and allow for my products to evolve with them and serve those needs, and then also to speak directly to them in a way that made them feel seen and heard and valued. And so once, I kind of got to a point where I was like feeling, okay, now I'm actually seeing that person come in. And that changes too. As my business has grown, as my skill level has increased, and I've been able to
Hmm.
offer different products and understand how to serve, maybe the consumer that is at that high level. For example, the consumer I told you that has like the book written and the
Oh, yeah.
videos and all the things done, but they haven't done anything with it. They just have it.
Yeah.
That was someone that I might not have been qualified to work for like a few years ago. And now I've gotten to the point where I've developed my skills so I can support them. So
That's awesome.
as you grow, your client base will change, but knowing how to
Hmm.
speak to them and developing that skill early on will be incredibly powerful. And you can do that without even investing money in my services. But if you want me to help you, I
No,
can absolutely help with the brand clarity. That's one thing that we do in the brand clarity session.
yeah, and I really was right now just having a moment thinking about the evolution of what's kind of like you said, your products and services have
Mhm.
evolved, or just I started with the 90-minute consultation, had
Yeah.
such a wonderful experience. And this is when I was starting a financial coaching business. But then after that, well, with that, you helped me actually start the website,
Mhm.
which then we had to revamp once I officially became a financial planning firm. Then we did another brand clarity session, really still building off because financial coaching and financial planning, very similar or complementary businesses. Um, but yeah, it definitely has been really nice to have your support. And then I was able to have that one-on-one support for 3 months. And that's more of my budgeting constraints that
Yeah.
you were really flexible and willing to work
Yeah. Of
with, which
course.
thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. No, I'm so proud of you and how you've built your business. And I think anyone who is a business owner who's listening to this now can see that, in their own business that, they leveled up and they kept leveling up and they kept getting smarter and they kept adding where they needed to add. And you're a great example of that, Christina, where you had an incredibly successful coaching business and then your clients started asking for that next level and you were
Hmm.
able to provide that to them and the work that we did to adjust some of your marketing as well,
Hmm.
to even speak to both at the same time, both, those that were already investing and maybe wanted to switch to a different,
Yeah.
planner, and then those who maybe were feeling like they didn't even know where to start. And so being able to
Hmm.
speak to both of those at the same time is really, really impressive, Christina,
Hmm.
in terms of how you're able to kind of lead someone through that journey.
Yeah. And even though I'm a solo advisor, and I didn't even mention the other marketing efforts that you've helped with, which is this podcast, but also a newsletter. And so I, even though I'm technically a solo advisor, having Erin to support me has been monumental. And it has been worth every penny that I
Thank you.
invested. And that's really, when we started out, I really am against paid advertising
Yeah,
just because, again, of my budget at the moment.
yeah,
And you were playing to not only my strengths, but my preferences of not, because ultimately I'm trying to build a service that's so good that the referral engine
yeah,
will be built, right?
yeah,
So my goal is to never have to pay for ads, but at the same time, there are other companies who have the budget for that. And it definitely takes some strain off of doing things like a podcast or a newsletter or social media posts. But
Mhm.
I'm focusing on those channels because I want to provide free resources like education. And I'm trying to beat my imposter syndrome and perfectionism and stay more consistent with my social media posts. Which I guess that's, the big challenge that I've been dealing with personally that I love that I've been able to share with you throughout my journey.
We all are battling those perfectionists. I think especially as business owners, a lot of us have that like perfectionism streak. Like I'm working, for example, with another individual, and we're building out a podcast, and the episodes are ready, they can go out, but he emailed me and he said, I'm really being a perfectionist and I need a moment to like get over myself before we release these. And I said, no problem. We're going to take that time and take the time you need, because the truth of the matter is sometimes once you hit go, it's going to go quickly. And so if you're not all the way mentally
I'm
prepared,
not buckled up yet.
it could be a hard thing. So it is important to take that time, but also to know when it's at a place where it's like, okay, now this is just getting silly. Now and you're great about working through that. And I think that's part of the process that we learn for ourselves as business owners is how do we banish that perfectionism and get to that next
Yeah.
level. You might not
Done
always,
is better than perfect is the
yes, like
mantra.
done is better than perfect. I agree, because if you don't take that chance, then you never get, number one, maybe the feedback that could have gotten you to the next level, and then you also don't get any visibility. You have zero
hmm
visibility if you don't hit post or hit send.
Yeah. And simple before sexy is definitely another mantra that in
That's a
business
good
and in
one.
marketing. Yeah.
Simplicity is the highest form of sophistication. That's one that I go
Yes.
by.
Oh, I do like that. I feel like I needed that to hear that. But it definitely has been so wonderful picking your brain and hearing just some of the insights that you've gathered throughout your very impressive career. And so, is there any main takeaway that you would like our listeners to take away?
So, you know, you and I talked a lot about the similarities between our business, which is great. The way that you would invest, for example, in your finances is the same way that you can invest in marketing. Many of the same characteristics of a good
hmm
investor are also the same characteristics of a good marketer and someone who invests well in marketing. And so I think that sometimes we overcomplicate it. Marketing can feel like this scary action.
hmm
It can also be like that action that we never ever get around to, or just keep like putting
Yeah.
putting
Yes.
off. And so the best thing to do is just to get started. And so if you can take a small action today and send that email or post
Schedule
that
that
social
clarity
media post,
consultation.
I would recommend just getting started and moving forward with whatever you can do in this moment, because really,
hmm
in the longer that you delay is going to be a potential client that you don't turn, or a potential insight that you don't learn from your audience.
hmm
And so that would be my note of encouragement to anyone who's listening and might have been putting off their marketing today. Let's get going. Do it.
Yes, I definitely also needed to hear that. I'm actually planning to do a 30-day content challenge in November,
Oh,
just
exciting.
posting 3 times a week on social media to get back or that ball rolling again. Yeah, in summary, keep it simple with a 4 to 8% budget if you're just getting started, ideally, and stay consistent, which I myself could do a better job of that, and measure meaningfully. I really like the quality of the leads that you're talking to. And I guess that's more of going back to quality versus quantity, which definitely resonates with me, or that's the type of focus that I have when looking at my metrics.
Yeah, I
But
think I think you
I'm
can
so excited to continue to work with you.
yeah, I know we could probably talk all day, and I think that you can probably easily burn yourself out if you're trying to speak to a million people at once. So having that
Hmm.
quality is definitely important.
Know your avatar client.
Yeah,
Get clear about who you want to serve and what your message is what I've learned from working with you.
you got it, Christina.
But this has been great. And everybody who's listening, thank you so much. And stay tuned for more.
Yeah, if anyone's out there and wants to get connected, my Instagram is my name. It's at Erin Tobias. Tobias is spelled Thobias. And yeah, my website is also erintobias.com.
It will be listed in the
Very
show
simple
notes.
and easy.
So definitely reach out to her if you need any help with your marketing or any support. And that is it for now. Tuning
Yeah.
off.
Thank you, Christina.
Goodbye.
I appreciate your time.
You too. Thank you.